The film, partly based on real events, begins in November 1943 in Prussia. A German girl, Rosa, comes to the small village of Pars, where the parents of her husband Gregor live. The girl's mother was killed in the bombing of Berlin, and her house was destroyed. The mother-in-law puts her son in the room of his son, who at this time is fighting somewhere in the vastness of the Soviet Union. During dinner, the guests are interested in why the Reich soldiers fenced off the local forest. The father-in-law says that Hitler's headquarters is located there, a fortified bunker called the Wolf's Lair. The owners also say that due to the absence of men who have gone to the front, the girl who worked as a secretary will now have to work with her hands. Hard physical labor in the open air makes a person sick and brutal. However, in the morning soldiers come to the house to politely invite Rosa into the government hole, without explaining why. 6 other young women are already languishing in the back. They are taken to a building occupied by the Wehrmacht, inside which they are invited one by one for a medical examination. They even take blood for tests. After these procedures, the ladies are invited to a set table, where they are persistently offered to dine. Given the shortage of food in wartime, they do not have to be persuaded. The girls flock to food with excellent appetite, despite the supervision of officers. After this, they are explained that they need to wait an hour to see if they have been poisoned. The fact is that in this way the cook checks the suitability of the Führer's dinner. The cook himself is loyal to him, but you never know what can happen. The ladies are dumbfounded by such practicality. One even tries to induce vomiting with 2 fingers, but the officer stops the attempt. Frightened guests wait until the ill-fated hour passes. After making sure that everything is in order with the test subjects, the cook telephones the bunker so that Hitler can be served lunch. The girls are sent home. Over dinner, Rosa tells her mother-in-law that she was chosen to work as a taster for the Führer himself with a salary of 200 marks. It's no big deal, eat delicious food and pray that this time no one will try to poison the artist. The next day the situation repeats itself. Fighting the fear of death, the chosen ladies diligently eat everything. During the break between lunch and dinner, women relax in the courtyard. There Rosa meets Lenya, a young girl who tells her about the others. They grew up in the same village and even know her husband. Everyone except Elfried, who also came from somewhere. Rosa promises to give one of her metropolitan dresses to her new friend, which makes the rural girl incredibly happy. December 43rd is coming. Accustomed to daily meals and no longer afraid of poison, tasters even talk to Hitler's personal chef during inspections. He tells why the Führer became a vegetarian. Having visited the slaughterhouse, he was too impressed by what was happening there, including the pools of blood. Rose receives a letter from her husband. He writes that he will come on leave for Christmas. The woman is looking forward to his visit. To celebrate, she even fulfills her lazy promises and gives her one of her dresses. Rosa shares her joy with her colleagues in the culinary business, but they remind her that she still has to wait for her husband. She is decorating the Christmas tree, and in the morning she hears noise outside. Running out into the snowy yard, the girl sees 2 soldiers. They brought a letter saying that Gregor had gone missing on the Eastern Front. Such news makes the woman depressed, not wanting to get out of bed. But the Wehrmacht soldiers don't care about her experiences at the Brandenburg Gate. They drag Rosa out of bed and drag her to work, to eat in the name of the Führer's safety. Arriving at the place, the girl starts a fight with one of her colleagues when she reminded her that she warned about the possibility of suddenly becoming a widow. The soldiers take the girls away, not forgetting to register educational people, after which they go to the table to do their direct duties. But even there, Rosa breaks the rules by grabbing someone else's portion. What is prohibited to do? If you mix all the dishes and get poisoned, it will be more difficult to understand what exactly contains the poison. After lunch she locks herself in the toilet to cry. Of all her colleagues, only Elfried comes to support her. May 44th arrives. The Führer left the Wolf's Lair for a while, which is why the tasters have the weekend. Rose, out of old habit, writes letters to her missing husband, thus pouring out her feelings. Returning to work, the women meet Lieutenant Albert Ziegler, who was appointed head of this facility. When Ziegler sends them home early because dinner is cancelled, Rose and several colleagues go to visit one of them. Heike. She owns a store where a young man, Ernst, too young to be drafted into the army, also works. During another break, Rosa, on her way to the toilet, hears music from Ziegler's office. She comes closer to listen to why the officer finds her. The woman admits that before the war she sang in a choir in the capital before moving here, to her homeland, to her husband who disappeared at the front. In the evening, after household chores, Rose is lying in bed when she notices the light of a flashlight outside. Looking out, she sees the German officer Ziegler under the windows. Without waiting for an answer, he leaves. During the next lunch, Heike lost his appetite due to poor health. However, she is forced to eat. Lieutenant Ziegler personally holds the spoon. In the evening, Rose again sees light in the window. The officer came to her house again. Realizing that these visits are not without reason, she stares at him as she passes by his office. For the next visit of the officer, the girl carefully prepares, dresses up in a weekend dress. When he gave a signal with a flashlight, she responds with the light of a lamp, after which she secretly goes outside. Outside, Ziegler attacks her with kisses, and she responds. They retire to the barn to do something for which German cinema will be famous throughout the world a decade later. At lunch, Rose and the others notice that Heike is throwing up. Having barely finished eating, she asks to go to the toilet. The soldier accompanies her, but reminds her that the food must remain inside. In the evening, the woman admits that she is pregnant by Ernst. And this is a rather piquant situation, considering that the husband is at war. We'll have to somehow explain the situation when he returns. Alfred admits that she can perform an abortion with improvised means. She was a nurse before the war. Another thing is that the death penalty is imposed in the country for abortion. The Führer needs loyal soldiers. Rose spends her nights with Ziegler, gradually becoming closer to him. However, when the mother-in-law says that she saw her son in a dream, the woman is tormented by a feeling of guilt for such betrayal. Moreover, the lover is also married. During the next break, Alfred says that he has set the time for the operation. Rosa and Lenny come to support Heike morally. Fortunately, everything went well. Rose gradually becomes closer to Alfred, especially during outings while young Lenny splashes in the local river. After another lunch, Rosie suddenly becomes ill. She vomits right in the room, and then two more girls throw up what they ate. Since everyone's menu was different, those who were not poisoned were sent to another room. The cook calls headquarters to cancel Hitler's dinner. The soldiers who escaped Madame are transported to the infirmary to see how it all ends. After lying down on their bunks, all three come to their senses and return to the dining room. There they continue their work, testing new dishes, perfectly prepared to replace the spoiled lunch. The frightened women do not want to eat, so the soldiers have to resort to persuasive measures, threatening the machine guns so that they carry out the order. Rosie has to obey first. During a smoke break, discussing what happened, Rosa asks a rhetorical question when all this will end. Alfred tells her in confidence that the German troops have significantly raked the Red Army and are furiously retreating. But in Germany the authorities do not talk about this too much, so as not to undermine the morale of the nation. The lieutenant calls Rosa into his office. He says he was worried about her, but there was nothing he could do. If he slept in their relationship, everything would only get worse. Although the girl is not very consoled by this explanation, she still meets with him at night. Ziegler tells her that the cause of the poisoning was not poison, but spoiled honey that got into the dessert. July 44th comes. In their free time, Rose and Alfred enjoy swimming in the river and having intimate conversations afterwards. At the same time, a secret affair with Ziegler reveals the officer's terrible secret. One day he wakes up from a nightmare. He dreamed that he was working in a concentration camp again and was forced to shoot his mistress. Rosa suddenly realizes that Hahal did very terrible things, killing prisoners, among whom were women and children. This realization makes her disgusted with the lieutenant. On the 20th, during a break, the women hear an explosion in the forest. Black smoke rises from the wolf's lair. Deciding that this was a sudden bombing, the soldiers tell them to hide in a building, after which they are sent to Osvoyazi. Having reached home, Rosa learns from her father-in-law that Hitler is dead, killed in an explosion. This means that she will no longer have to risk being poisoned by his lunch. However, at night she hears the sounds of the radio. The Valkyrie Führer, who carried out the assassination attempt during the operation, addressed the nation to stop rumors and speculation. After the assassination attempt, security regulations were sharply tightened. From now on, tasters are not allowed to go home. They were settled in the same building where the dinners were held. Having placed the women on bunk beds, Ziegler annoyedly goes out to smoke, realizing that now Rose can't just be dragged out on a date. During the day, the officer calls her to his place, but says that everything is over between them. Sora infuriates Ziegler. He even threatens the girl, but not for long. If something happens to her, she will have to explain herself long and tediously. In the fall of 44, two things happen. November and the Red Army. The atmosphere in the establishment is depressing. The scale of the impending tragedy does not bode well for the Nazis. They are systematically preparing to burn all the documents. Defeatism also reigns among tasters. Later that night, Rose can't sleep. She goes into the corridor where Elfred is smoking. A friend secretly admits that in addition to an illegal abortion, she has another sin in her soul. In fact, she is a Jewish woman, Edna, who miraculously escaped deportation to a concentration camp. With the end inexorably approaching, Hitler makes his wolfish lairs. The tasters are dismissed as unnecessary and allowed to go home. When they are packing their things, one of the girls is called to the officer. She never joins the others in the back of the truck later. At home, the mother-in-law, having saved the money she earned with Naka, advises her to go deeper into the country. She and her husband will remain to wait for their son's return. He is still listed as missing. However, leaving is problematic. The Wehrmacht reserved all trains for its needs, but there are no other ways. Dinner is interrupted by the appearance of a German patrol. The soldiers are looking for Elfred to arrest her for an illegal abortion. One of my friends spilled the beans. Having examined the house, yard and outbuildings and found nothing, the Nazis, like the Führer's hopes for victory, disappear without a trace in the night. In the afternoon, Rosa goes back to the building, where the soldiers are actively burning all the documentation. The less evidence, the shorter the sentence. The girl asks Lieutenant Ziegler for help. Organize her a seat on the train to Berlin. He responds by asking where her Jewish friend is. Her real name became known. He also knows that she knew about the abortion, but he brushed her off. The officer makes a date with the girl. At night, Rose leaves the house and runs towards the light in the barn. Ziegler is waiting there. He orders you to report to the station in the morning, introducing yourself as a volunteer. He'll put in a good word for her. When he leaves, the girl calls Elfred from the depths of the garden tools. Rose, as in the meme with Hans Landa, shelters the enemies of the Reich. She invites her friend to go together in the morning. At dawn, the father-in-law takes the girls in a cart to the station. Rosa brazenly tells the distribution officer that they are volunteers, with whom Ziegler agreed. Having reached the desired carriage, they see a doctor, whom Elfred begins to assist. She is a nurse after all. Rose notices Ziegler at the window. He came to catch the fugitive. The girl grabs her friend and runs to another exit. But the officer chases them and tells Elfred to stop. Rosa shields her friend with her body, but when she tries to run away, the lieutenant kills her with a well-aimed shot. Rose bends over Elfred's corpse, crying for her friend. Ziegler tears her away from the corpse in order to throw her into the carriage of a train leaving for the capital at the last moment. The rhythmic sound of wheels, Rose looks at her friend's blood-stained hands. The film ends with a brief historical note about Margot Welk, the prototype of Rose. The only survivor of Adolf Hitler's 14 tasters.